Hello everybody and welcome to our Ganian's puzzle box. In today's video I'm going to show you how to quickly make some rocks in ZBrush by just sculpting them very quickly. They're not going to be incredibly detailed. The idea of this tutorial is to show you how to quickly get UVs done in ZBrush and then exporting them ready to be used in Substance Painter or Quixel Mixer or whatever other texture software that you use, and then you can just drop those meshes into Unreal Engine and start working with them. What you can see right here now, I've just got a few of these rocks placed in the scene, and put them inside sort of a towering structure just for playing around a bit with the lighting of it. So first things first, we want to create our shape. I've just made the shape into Blender very quickly, and now I've got in Substance Painter, doing some more modifications to it. It's not a lot of things that you need to do to it. I mean, obviously it's all about depending on what type of rock you want to make, if you're using reference or not. Right now I'm going for a stylized look, so I'm not really using any reference. I'm just sculpting around, pushing and pulling while having my mesh dynameshed. So we're going to move very quickly through this, add some details here and there until we get to the point where we need to start UV unwrapping. As you know, ZBrush, Dynamesh in ZBrush is mainly to be used until you get a proper shape of what you want to do. After you've done that, you obviously want to ZBrush your entire mesh to get it into a more acceptable level of geometry. After you press ZBrush, you can actually start playing around with the details, but first you need to divide it a couple of times so that you can actually have more geometry to work with. If you press the divide button, let's say about 4 to 5 times, you'll get enough geometry to be able to add details to your mesh. But it's very important not to delete the lower resolutions because when you UV unwrap, you want to switch back to the lowest resolution available to UV unwrap before you go to the highest option, because otherwise ZBrush won't even allow you to do to work on it if you haven't done something like that. I mean, you potentially could just have one subdivision level, but if that's going to be like 1 million polygons, then you're going to have a really hard time getting that properly UV unwrapped without any sort of issues. But then, after you've ZBrush it and subdivided it, start working around the shape, add some use alphas and so on, just detailing the rock. Again, this is all about what you want to achieve and how you want to make it. This is not a tutorial of how to make rocks to begin with. This is a tutorial about how to UV unwrap in ZBrush. Okay, so we've got our rock over here. Just not really happy with the detail overall, in the sense of it's a bit blurry, as you can see. So I'm just going to press the divide button one more time. This is going to take the active points to 1.5 million. Now, I could have sculpted this when I had it at a higher, a higher subdivision like now, and the details would have actually been better than what they are. But I think we're going to be okay for this particular sort of example that we're going through right now. Now, as I said before, it's important to keep the lowest subdivision active as well, because we are going to UV unwrap this mesh inside ZBrush. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go to our lowest subdivision, which is level 1. And then over here in Z plugin, we have the option called UV master. With this done, you've got an option here where it says work on clone, which is basically what you want to press. So you're going to press that button, and now this has created a clone, and it's already opened it as well. With the clone now open, you've got an option in here in which you can press flatten, and it says no UVs exist for this model, please create UV mapping before using this feature. So you've got the unwrap option over here, so you can press that. And once that's done, and if you go up here and you press flatten, this is how the UV is going to look like. So this is exactly what ZBrush has done for our UV. You can then go, I believe there was an option in here somewhere where it had like a fold and unfold sort of thing. I'm just not sure where exactly that was. Oh right, I think it was in UV map. So let's just see, have we got the option over here? No, I can't remember where the option was. Or was it a morph target? No, can't remember where that was, but yeah, there's definitely an option in here where you can actually just pretty much switch between it's being, you know, being sort of unfolded this way and folded back. Just not sure where that is. Man, how could I literally forgot about the option. You know, I don't use it nowadays as much. This is why I don't actually remember what it was, but yeah, it's somewhere in these. I'll leave it in the comment in the description below where you can find that option as well. So we've got the mesh unfolded, like I said. But maybe you don't like, oh sorry, I didn't want Dynamesh. Maybe you don't like what you see in the sense of how this has been unwrapped. So we've got the unflatten option over here. Maybe you want to have some seams specifically where, you know, you can direct where they're going to show. So you've got enable control painting, and this is, you know, you can read what these options do if you hover over them. But basically, so this says click to enable painting of areas that UV Master will try to route any seams through. So if you press the attract, you can now paint. So you can say where do you want your seams to be. So this is very important. Like for example, I could say, look, I want the seam to go through here, just because I find it to be a bit more of a covered area. Maybe then go this way, and then maybe come around like this and meet somewhere around here. Now if you do that, then basically you've told ZBrush what you want to do with the unwrap. So if you press unwrap again, it will obviously calculate again, and then you can flatten, and you can see how the UV map looks like now, which in essence could be more than what you you know, what you needed. You can also go again. I keep Dynameshing. You can also go in here again, and you can, sorry, not flatten. You can go into attract again or protect. So with the protect, basically tells ZBrush areas that you definitely don't want it to. So it says over here, you definitely don't, you want to discourage ZBrush from putting any seams in that area. And then you also have the erase, where you can obviously erase any of these two together. But we're just going to leave it like that, really. So this is the mesh that we've got. And then I can go over here and go back to, you know, exit this option, and I can copy the UVs, which is fine. And then I can go back to my original tool, which is this cube. Sorry, why is this not working? So that's the, oh, sorry, I've already opened it. What am I doing? So I've already opened the tool. All I need to do is just go to the highest res. I don't know what was I thinking. Right, so I've already copied the UVs. I can go over in here in Z plugin and then just say paste UVs. And now we have the same sort of UV. So if we flatten, flat is only allowed on mesh with subdivision levels. Right, okay, so you can do it. You definitely need that option. So let me just look where, you know, what that looks like right now. So it turns out the option was actually what I thought it was. It's in UV map. So you've got this Morph Uv, and you can see how our high poly mesh looks like when you actually morph it into the UV. I want to show you something. So if you go into your geometry and you go to the lowest subdivision level, for example, and then you go back into the UV map and press the morph, you can actually see that happening live. And this is because you've got there's not enough polygons for ZBrush to slow down. So we will show you this in real time. But if you start subdividing your mesh, so you know, you go to a higher resolution, then the morph option will then turn into an instant sort of thing, where it doesn't show you that animation. So you see, even at 384,000 points, it can do the animation, but anything over 1 million, it most likely will not be able to. So I've got, as I said, I've got the highest resolution, which is the one that I want to export. Now I could go further down with this and sort of do like a bake, so you know, project the details on a lower polygon mesh. But we're not here to do that. We're here to get this mesh into Substance Painter ready to be painted. So let's do that. So now we're just going to press over onto our Z plugin, and we got the export import as an FBX. So pretty much use these options that you see in here. That should be okay. Once you press export, just select where you want to put the mesh. So I've got ZBrush Rock. I'm just going to put an underscore Nanite, and then we'll see each other in Substance Painter. Okay, Substance Painter, press File and New, and then we obviously want to bring in the ZBrush Rock Nanite. And we'll do 4K, that's fine. We don't need to have auto unwrap or anything like that because we obviously have already done that, and now we can just import the mesh. This is going to take a bit of time just because it's a 1.5 million triangles, I believe, or polygons, I'm not really sure, but it's quite a hefty mesh for us, which obviously Nanite will handle without any sort of problems. So we've got the mesh over into ZBrush now, into Substance Painter. Now, one of the first things that I would like to mention is that although we don't need to bake a normal map, or we don't need to bake a displacement or anything like that anymore, we do want to bake the other stuff. So you go into Bake Mesh Maps, and then you press this option here where it says Use Low Poly Mesh as High Poly Mesh. Obviously do it in whatever texture you want, whatever texture size, so I'm going to use 4K. We don't need a normal, we don't need an ID. The rest of them, you know, thickness, for example, is only useful if you're going to have things that are going to enter through the surface, so they're going to actually affect what's beneath the surface, so I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to leave position, curvature, ambient occlusion, and the world space normal. The reason why you want to do this is because the effects that you apply texture-wise, you apply to your mesh, are going to be driven by these in case you're using generators. So it's going to be very important that you actually have these baked in. So some other options in here, you just leave everything else the same. You may want to add some anti-aliasing to your texture, it really depends, but obviously adding this will increase the baking time quite a lot. So I'm just going to press bake, and we'll see each other after that's done. So now we have it, it's all done, all baked, and it's already looking a bit nicer because it's got that ambient occlusion going on now, so that's going to be okay. One thing to understand is that because we have such a high poly mesh, you can also use displacement in Substance Painter to further modify this mesh if you want to, and I've shown you that in my previous video on how to make procedural rocks with Substance Painter. So you can apply the same methodology where you can combine different elements from what you've already painted in ZBrush, and also adding some new elements from Substance Painter as well to further push this form. So we now want to work on our texture and be able to make it into whatever we like. Now I'm going to make it a bit like a stylized type of rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this layer and add a fill layer. And then with the fill layer, we're just gonna have to give it a color. So I don't know, let's just try some sort of a bluish tint, something like that. Now I want it to be quite rough, so I'm gonna do that. Okay, maybe add a bit of metallicness to it. Nah, it's fine without any metallic. So this is sort of the base color, but I don't really like the color as much. I'm probably gonna go for something a bit more like that. I don't know, something like that, let's say. We'll see how it turns out. So once I've added this fill layer with this information, I can now add a few extra layers. So I can press this button again, and then maybe with this one I want to add some green tint to it, I don't know, maybe. And then we'll add a black mask and a generator, and this generator is going to use the curvature of our mesh, something like that. And let's have a look. Yeah, something like that. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a filter, and maybe with this filter I'm going to do a blur slope. Let's see how that looks like. I actually don't see any change, so maybe I need to add a filter in here. Let's try blur slope. So I'm doing this to the mask rather than to the, so you can see what's going on. I'm basically losing the detail as I increase the slope. Maybe something like that. Now this curvature, we can work with it even further, maybe increase the contrast a bit, bring the balance a bit higher. It's all about combining these sort of textures in order to get something nicer. Okay, what else can we do? Let's add another fill layer, and this one we're going to create some sort of a orange brownish sort of thing. So yeah, maybe like that. Again, I don't really want any, I don't want it to shine, so I'm going to increase the roughness on these. Okay, so with this again, I'm going to add a black mask and then add a generator. And on this generator, we can use, let's try with a metal edge. Okay, and then we can also invert it and maybe increase the wear level a bit, so it sort of comes out that way, as you can see. Okay, what else do we want to do? So I think the blue, I think this red, for example, is just not visible enough, so maybe we'll take the blur slope. Actually, if I put the blur slope down, yeah, I think that will help a bit more. Let's see, does this thing actually even do anything at this point? I don't think the blur slope does anything if it's underneath, so we'll just take it out. But the green itself is not really helping, so maybe turn it a bit lower, maybe make it shiny, so you know that sort of shines a bit, something like that. This is a very weird alien looking rock, isn't it? Right, okay, so I think I'm also gonna add some dirt, but I could potentially go into my smart materials and look for that in here. I haven't used smart materials in quite a while, I'll be honest, because everything you get from substance source is no longer a smart material. So this is the dirt that I've just added, and it's already, you know, it's filled cavities, but it may have overdone it a bit, so I may have a look here. The gradient itself, I think it's a bit too strong, so I'm just going to make it be a bit less prominent. I believe the scale just affects the grunge. Let's have a look at the grain intensity. Okay, and this is the projection, which is fine. Okay, let me just see. I believe I can add a filter over here and then go for a let's try the blur slope over here, see what that happens. I generally use blur slope quite a bit. Okay, so the blur slope worked quite okay. So making, when I make textures for, you know, as I said, to be a bit more animated, a bit more cartoony, I use blur slope a lot on the textures to basically lose some of their details. Now I think I liked it more how it looked like that. Okay, so you can see how this is already panned out, and we created this weird looking rock shape thingy, which is not, as I said, it's not exactly the most thought out thing ever. I didn't even look at any real reference, although you should always look at reference if you're going to do something like this. But again, you know, this is very nice for us to be able to fill in and play around with. I mean, I do have some more textures in here that are quite stylized that I could drop in. So I don't know, let's just have a look. Maybe I'm sure I had some crystals, yeah. So for example, I can add this crystal texture over, and this is quite nice, isn't it? And then I can add a black mask, add a generator, and then go for maybe dripping rust. Let's see what that does. No, I'm not too happy about that. Again, I could play with the settings, but let's just try something else. So I've added in the dirt, but it's obviously covering the dirt that we added previously. So I could add a compare mask, and obviously this is just working between this layer and the one underneath. But I can then go in here and add a level and only affect the height. And then with that, we can play around with the height of the layer underneath, which then pretty much, you know, guarantees that we're going to see more of that mesh, although it's not really coming out perfectly. Nah, you know what, I think it was okay without the dirt mask. So something like that, yeah, it should be fine. You know, so this is a very weird looking rock. but I'm going to use this in Unreal now and just bring it in and make it into a Nanite mesh. So first things first, let's export the mesh. So file, export textures. I always, you know, I'm gonna save it in the same place that I've put the other stuff, which is in here, I believe. Right, no, it's actually in here. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it in here. So I'm going to select this folder, and then I'm going to make sure that it goes up as Unreal Engine 4. Yes, it's definitely gonna be a 4K texture, and I can press export and then bring everything. The mesh is already exported, as you know, so all I need to do is just bring it over into Unreal. Okay, so now that we're in Unreal, it's time to bring the mesh over. I'm just going to drop it somewhere around here. Let's you know, let's see how that's going to look like. I'm just going to press import, and if I now remember exactly what I've put the file, which was in here, Zbrush Nanite. Now Unreal is going to ask me whether or not I want to build Nanite, which I do, obviously. Which, you know, this option is already selected, so just have that enabled and then press import. This is going to take a bit of time, maybe less than a minute, I think, but generally that's how long it takes for something that big. And then we can bring in the textures and put it into our world. So now that I've got everything in here, I can create a new material, and I'm going to name it ZBrush_rock. Double click it. That's my rock there, the Nanite version of the rock. And now with these, with this material open, I can bring in the free textures. If only I could actually go in there. Okay, so stylized world content, then a modular, and these are the free textures. I've just pretty much just imported them in a location so I can easily drop them in. With these added, I can now link them to where they need to be. So this is the base color, which goes into the base color. Then this is the map that connects to roughness for the green channel, ambient occlusion for the red channel, and metallic for the blue channel. And then we've got the normal, which can go into the normal channel. With all of that done, we can then press apply. And at this point we can now close this material, and we can open our rock, our Nanite rock. Let's get out of it as well. Unfortunately, performance drops when I record and also use Unreal are very common. Okay, so I've added the material. I can now close this panel, and now I can bring in the rock into Unreal itself. And this is the mesh, as you can see. It's got the origin to the geometry. It's not looking bad, but you know, does it in essence fit this environment? Not really, because I just randomly made some stuff in here. But normally, I think this would work better in an in an underwater environment. But that doesn't mean that you can just drop it in here and have some nice, you know, create some nice shapes with it. You can always go into Substance Painter and re-edit the textures, make them look different. So, you know, I've just added the rock over here. I can easily multiply it without any sort of performance drop, because this is Nanite, so there shouldn't really be any issues. I'm just gonna turn it around like that, and now I've got two of these rocks, as you can see. And I don't know, we could potentially duplicate them again, and this time around maybe shrink them a bit. Okay, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to shrink them a bit and then put them down and then rotate them like that. So now it looks a bit like a type of a coral type of a structure, I think. But yeah, you know, that's how you basically export from ZBrush with UV maps. Also ignore the grass that is currently sitting on top of these walls. None of this stuff here is finished. But this is how these rocks will look like. One thing also, we can always sort of drop them, you know, take them over, put them inside a building, such as here. And the reason why I've done that is because I want to bring them inside of the building. Something like that. Maybe make them smaller. So have them a bit smaller, put them down like that. And then with that done, we can go into our project settings. And in the project settings we can activate lumen, which I normally keep deactivated for performance related issues. So you can see there, that's the dynamic lighting. I am going to activate lumen, and this is how it would look like with lumen. You see what I mean? It's just the mesh overall looks better. Now what I don't have is I don't have virtual shadow maps on either for Nanite. But again, the performance really drops down when I record and use lumen as well. So let me just turn that off. You can see now that pretty much the performance is back to, you know, working properly. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video and learned something. This is the basic principle of how to export UV maps from ZBrush for your meshes that you're going to sculpt. This is pretty much what they did when they made the Unreal sort of you know, walkthrough when they showed all the technology. But this is what they meant about think about UV maps before you actually commit to adding details. So hope you guys learned something. Please subscribe and like the channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video.